I know how much you love questions about the transfer window during the month of January. There's been a lot of speculation about your players, and Andrew Fisher is one of those players. Any developments?
Yeah, I think we've been a lot of to and fro in the last few days, and I think we have come to a situation where we've accepted a bid from Swansea. So Fisher's travelling down there to meet with them. So not ideal timing wise, but at the same point, I think what we need to do is put all our energy into provide an opportunity for the guys that are left. I have to say, there's certain frustrations obviously around it, how it's all been conducted, the noise around it. From my perspective, and I know the club's perspective, and just in how it's all been handled. But it gets to a stage where we have to obviously maintain the club's best interests, and we feel that what we've got we're pleased with. So it's now a case of being ready to move on.
So that means presumably Franco steps up and has a fair amount of responsibility on his shoulders.
Yeah, I think so. And if you look at Franco did well in the Charlton and the Orient game, I was really pleased with the progress he'd shown. So yeah, Franco's been working extremely hard. He's a terrific character, and it's important. We get behind him and support him tomorrow.
Will you be looking to bring another goalkeeper in?
Yeah, obviously Laurie went out as well, so it's something that, like I say, it's not a reaction. It's something that we've been working hard in the background to make sure that we get someone that's the right fit and comes at the right time and suits where we're at. So I think we'll be looking to add to it definitely.
Anything else to tell us about in this transfer window, or is it just business ticking along behind the scenes?
Ticking along behind the scenes, like I say, is a huge amount of work that does get done that obviously people aren't aware of, but it's just constant. It's constantly fluctuating and changing and moving pieces within throughout the rest of January. That it's just a case of making sure that when things like this do happen, that we're actually on the front foot, we're ready to go. So you can never obviously predict the time that things happen, which obviously make it a challenge at times and make it difficult. But I think I've said it all year. It's about not getting too high or too low in the short term, and understanding we have to work for the best interests of the club and the squad in the long term.
Just how much are you looking forward to MK Dons against AFC Wimbledon?
Yeah, massively. Obviously, it'll be my first experience of it. I've been grilling some of the people here to understand more around the history and understand how things came about, how's it been over the years. Some key moments throughout it. So looking forward to it. I think it's also really important that the guys understand that yes, it is an important game, but at the same point we have to approach it in the same way that we do every game, with the same level of discipline, the same level of desire to compete, to work, and make sure that our focus stays the same. I think sometimes when there's an extra bit for the fans, of course it can give the players a lift and a boost, but we have to make sure that we're still on track with what we need to do to win the match.
And what have those people who have told you about the history of the two clubs let you know about? I mean, it's a fierce rivalry, and I'm glad they've told you about the history of the two clubs, because if you hear it from outside, it'll probably be relatively made up in many respects. So it's good to hear it from the horse's mouth. It's a really interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's obviously such a unique game in terms of in terms of how the rivalry started and where it's at. It's obviously there's not many. I don't think there's any other games like it in the country. So. That's what puts the extra bit on it, and I want to do well in it. We want to do well in it. Them types of games. So I think it's important that, like I say, we understand it, because I think again, what's really important when you're at a club, I think you have to respect the history. You have to respect the traditions, the cultures. When you're there, you have to. I think the big thing for me is respect the future of the club as well, and understand that all of us, the staff, the players, our job when we join to when we leaving is making sure that we do our utmost to leave the club in a better place than when we joined. And I think that's why understanding elements of the history and the rivalry is really important.
And there'll be a number of players who, of course, they've played in front of crowds, but they maybe won't have experienced something like this before. It's a different kind of atmosphere tomorrow night. I presume players like Dean Lewington, some of the more experienced players, would have kind of given them an idea of what they might expect.
Yeah, I have to say Skip's terrific. Again, I lean on him a lot for his experience and his knowledge of the club and the history and these games, these situations. So I think it's massive that we use that to share that amongst the group. We have got a really young group of players. So obviously, when it happened all those years ago, I think there's some guys that were in nappies probably still. So I think it's really important that players understand it. I think And it's massive for the fans. I think that's the biggest one. And our fans, so many times this year have stepped up and delivered when we've needed them. And I think that's really important going into the game tomorrow. That we have the fans behind us, and that the players give them something to be behind as well. I think that's it's a two-way thing. We have to make sure on the pitch that we do our jobs, and we work as hard as we can. We compete. We attack well, we defend well, and and then the extra bits. Can the fans then get us over the line? I think that's a key thing in the game as well.
I think you've already mentioned it. Aside from the occasion, and you, I know, won't play the occasion, but it's actually at this point in the season a home game. Really wanting to stay in touch with those teams in the playoffs. It's a big time of the year. It's a big game.
Yeah, definitely. I think especially this stage of the year when you look at kind of that transition into winter with pitches, with like the window. There's so many distractions that they can potentially take your eye off the ball and what's actually most important, and that is game by game. We have to turn up tomorrow. The prep's been good today. We had a real good reflection, I felt, from the weekend. We have to make sure that we turn up tomorrow night ready to give our all to take 3 points from the game.
And just on the visitors tomorrow at AFC, they've actually got some dangerous players, haven't they, that can cause your side some problems?
Yeah, they have. They've got a few threats within their team. We've done our work on them. We've had a look at them. We've presented that back to the guys so they know what to expect. It's then a case of, obviously, can we nullify their threats and expose their weaknesses? And that's how you set the game plan up. That's what we obviously do every week. So we've done our work like we normally would, and it's now a case of can we execute the plan? Can we take it into the game and come out on top at the end?
How's David Kasumu? Just finally.
Yeah, he's obviously a bit downbeat. Obviously, the timing of it. Obviously, it's not the first time he's picked up a hamstring injury. So again, he's got his scan later. I think it's important. I think how you deal with the emotional side of it as well as the physical side. So it's important. He knows that we're there for him. We'll get around him. We'll then have a look at it and see what the results of the scan are ultimately. So until we get them results, we from a timescale perspective, we're not sure.
Thanks so much, Liam. Cheers. Appreciate it.
No problem.
It must be so frustrating for him. I mean, I know we use the word frustrating an awful lot of late, but for a guy quite as young as David Kasumu to have these injuries fairly regularly and they seem to be a recurrence of a hamstring problem must be just a nightmare scenario for him. Yeah,
it's difficult, and again, I think it's obviously he'd worked so hard to get back in and around the team, and I was really pleased with him. The impact he'd had in the games he came on, and then obviously Charlton, and to work his way back into the team. We'd had a couple of meetings about things, and he'd really shown a good response, and it was in a good place. Hence him earning the right to start at Aki away. So yeah, it's for all parties, for him, for me, for the team, it's disappointing, but that's part and parcel of the industry. We now have to make sure that we really look into it and we do our utmost to make sure that we give him the best care possible.
I know you've only played twice in the league since your last win, but it does feel like a long time now, doesn't it? Since that last win, and I suppose it's funny that 2 draws now feels like a little bit of a blip for your side. And I suppose that can only be a good thing, can't it? That you picked up points in these games, but we're still looking at it like, need to get back to winning ways. Yeah,
and the lads feel that. I think especially after the weekend, it's really difficult. They obviously go down to 10 early, which arguably makes it harder for us in terms of where they concede space. So watching it back, and so difficult. They had 10 in the penalty box at times, and I think there's always that perception when you're playing against 10 men that it should be easy, but which it's never the case, because like you see, they concede less space behind them. They bank up. If you look at the control second half, it was a case of whether we're able to, not we didn't even have to worry too much about the other end. So it's really difficult from that perspective. The weekend it's then a case of how do we channel that emotion, that frustration, and it has to go into getting better. So in them future situations when we're against a really low block, or it's rather than get more frustrated as the game goes on, can we maintain our discipline and of course take a few more risks and be braver in certain situations? But I think that what tends to happen is you play on emotion more than anything as you get more frustrated. So we've looked at it, we've reflected on it, and I have to give the group a huge compliment. And that's why they're so good to work with. Is they know. So they know when they come in after the weekend how frustrated they are. So I've challenged them. Let's channel that energy, that frustration, that emotion into the game tomorrow night. To like you said, get back to winning ways.
And just finally, obviously was registered a little bit too late on Friday to play, but can we expect to see you new signing Theo at some point tomorrow?
Yeah, the registration's done, so he's in contention. So he, like I say, he's really excited that he's joined us. And again, just to reiterate, he brings a different dimension to us. So he's definitely in contention for the game tomorrow night.